Day before the biggest football tournament in history, a supporter in North America received an email from the governing body of the sport they love. The email informed them that a rule had changed, something they had been told they could bring to a World Cup match, something as basic, as unremarkable, as fundamental to attending an outdoor event in summer temperatures pushing 40 degrees Celsius as a reusable water bottle was now banned. Not a weapon, not an item with any conceivable threat to stadium security that hadn't been identified months earlier. An empty, transparent, soft plastic bottle. The kind that people carry to every football match, every music festival, every outdoor event on Earth. Banned. With a week to go before the opening match, after supporters had already made travel plans, purchased tickets, booked accommodation, and in many cases, traveled thousands of miles. The immediate response from football's supporter community was swift, pointed, and entirely justified. An English fan group described it as the latest money grab. A spokesperson for the Football Supporters Association said what everyone was thinking, that yet again with this World Cup, it was fans last and not fans first. A British Prime Minister called it just wrong. And within days, the governing body reversed the decision, announcing that fans would be permitted to bring a single, sealed, disposable, factory-sealed 20-ounce bottle into venues. The reversal is welcome, but the episode, the ban, the backlash, the reversal, is worth examining carefully. Not because a water bottle policy is the most significant issue facing this tournament. It isn't. But because the sequence of events captures, in miniature, everything that has been wrong about the relationship between the governing body and the people who attend its matches throughout the preparation for this World Cup. A decision made without adequate consideration of its practical consequences, a commercial motivation, water sold exclusively by a long-term sponsor at prices the governing body described as consistent with standard venue rates that appeared to override basic common sense. A public response from supporters so immediate and so clear that the decision couldn't be sustained for more than a few days, and a U-turn that, while necessary, arrived only after the criticism became loud enough to be impossible to ignore. That pattern, decision, criticism, reluctant reversal, has defined FIFA's public management of this tournament across multiple issues and across many months. And as the 2026 World Cup opens tomorrow, it is worth setting the water bottle episode within its proper context, because the water bottle is not the story. It is the latest chapter in a story that began long before any supporter received that email. Let's go through what that story actually is, in full and with the specificity it deserves. Begin with the heat, because the water bottle ban did not occur in a neutral environment. It occurred in the context of a tournament where 14 of the 16 host stadiums are expected to experience heat stress conditions exceeding recognized safety thresholds for athletic performance and spectator welfare. Not one or two challenging venues, 14 of 16. Research conducted by universities across the United Kingdom and Canada, analyzing 20 decades of weather data for the host locations, found that in a hotter-than-average summer, which climate science increasingly describes as the new normal, as many as 9 stadiums could exceed the critical heat stress threshold for half of the duration of the tournament. 4 stadiums could see conditions reaching 32 degrees Celsius on the wet bulb globe temperature scale, a measure that accounts for heat, humidity, and solar radiation together, and that is considerably more accurate than simple air temperature as a measure of heat stress risk. The stadiums at highest risk include some of the most prominent venues in the tournament: Houston, Monterey, Philadelphia, Kansas City, Boston, and the stadium in the New York and New Jersey area, all without air conditioning in their open or semi-open configurations, are among those identified as facing the most significant heat challenges. Monterey has seen mid-summer highs in the 40s Celsius in recent years. Houston presents what one climate expert described as the most dangerous heat-humidity combination of any host city. A deputy director at the National Oceanic and Atmospheric Authority put the fan welfare concern plainly. When spectators are cheering, they are generating metabolic heat and their heart rate is rising. Unlike professional athletes, fans are generally not in peak physical condition. They have health factors that increase the likelihood of a negative outcome from heat stress. FIFA's response to the heat challenge was to mandate 3-minute drinks breaks in the 22nd minute of each half at all matches. That decision was widely interpreted, including by supporters groups, as serving two purposes simultaneously: hydration for players during extreme conditions and a reliable, scheduled advertising break for broadcasters. Critics said that essentially converting a football match into 4 quarters for the benefit of commercial partners was not primarily a welfare decision. It was a scheduling decision dressed in welfare language. Whether that interpretation is entirely fair is debatable. What is not debatable is that FIFA mandated those breaks for the players and then, in the same week, attempted to ban the fans from bringing the means to hydrate themselves.
Players get 3-minute cooling breaks in the 22nd minute. Fans were told their reusable water bottles were a safety risk. The juxtaposition was immediately noticed, widely cited, and constituted the clearest possible expression of a tournament where the welfare of the participants on the pitch and the welfare of the supporters in the stands are being managed according to entirely different standards. Now, here is where things get more complex, because the water bottle episode, for all its symbolic clarity, is one thread in a picture that has been building for months. The travel ban situation is another thread, and it is one that has altered the fundamental character of this tournament in ways that no reversal can fix, because there is no reversal available. 2 presidential proclamations, issued in June and December of last year, together subject nationals from 39 countries to travel restrictions affecting their ability to enter the United States. Those proclamations include specific carve-outs. Athletes, coaches, and people in a necessary support role are exempt. Their immediate family members are exempt. The exemptions were designed to allow the tournament to proceed with all qualified nations participating. And in a functional sense, they achieved that. All 48 nations are here. Iran's players cross the border from their base in Tijuana on match days. Haiti's players will take the field in their fixtures. Ivory Coast's captain said his team can play without supporters. The most important thing is to win every game. But read those exemptions carefully, because what they include is as significant as what they exclude. Spectators are not exempt. Journalists are not exempt. Corporate sponsors are not exempt. Extended family members of players are not exempt. The proclamation carves out the minimum necessary to allow the football to happen: the athletes, their coaches, their essential support staff, their immediate relatives, and leaves everyone else subject to the full weight of the restrictions. What that means in practice is that the supporters of 4 qualifying nations, Haiti, Iran, Ivory Coast, and Senegal, face direct barriers to attending matches in the United States. Their players earned the right to be at this World Cup. Their coaches prepared and qualified their teams through grueling campaigns. But the community that would have followed them, the fans who saved money, who applied for tickets through the official channels, who dreamed of watching their country compete at the world's greatest tournament, those people are excluded by a proclamation that the governing body had no authority to override and chose not to formally challenge. Senegal's fan Djibril Gueye said something at the Africa Cup of Nations in Morocco in January that needs no interpretation. He said that in his view, if the United States doesn't want fans from certain countries, then they shouldn't have agreed to host the tournament. That is not anger. It is a straightforward observation about the relationship between hosting a universal competition and extending a universal welcome. It is an observation that the governing body has not answered. 8 UEFA delegates on the FIFA Council staged a walkout during a meeting earlier this year, in a formal expression of institutional dissatisfaction with how the tournament was being managed. That is not background noise. That is the governing body of European football removing itself from a FIFA Council meeting as a collective protest. The details of what triggered the walkout and what was discussed in the aftermath have not been fully disclosed publicly. But the act itself, senior football administrators refusing to remain in the room, is a measure of the level of frustration that is built up within football's institutional structures around this tournament.
Human Rights Watch wrote formally to FIFA in May, expressing what it described as grave concerns about the impact of border policies on players and fans. It said the administration of the host country had implemented or was planning policies that fundamentally undermined the inclusive spirit of the World Cup and the non-discrimination policies under FIFA's own statutes. That is not a marginal advocacy organization. That is one of the most respected human rights monitoring bodies in the world, writing to the governing body of football, citing FIFA's own statutes as a standard the tournament was failing to meet. Amnesty International published a report describing a human rights emergency in the United States, characterized by abusive immigration policies, restrictions on freedom of speech and assembly, and discrimination against members of the LGBTQ+ community. That report was published in March. The tournament opens tomorrow. The emergency it described has not been resolved.
Into this environment, the travel bans, the walk-out, the human rights reports, the water bottle reversal, the empty stands have arrived as the most visible and measurable consequence. The Club World Cup's 400,000 empty seats last summer provided the warning. The warning was not heeded in any meaningful operational sense, and the early indicators for this tournament have followed the same direction. More than 17,000 supporters canceled tickets they had already purchased, reflecting a measurable translation of the boycott conversation into concrete action. Hotels across 11 American host cities are tracking below their initial booking forecasts. The Houston hotel director expecting full occupancy is not sold out. Seattle's hotel occupancy for June is below where it was the same month last year. Dallas has between 350,000 and 490,000 unsold tickets across 9 matches. An England warm-up in Tampa drew 13,000 to a 69,000-seat stadium 5 days before the tournament. The travel deterrents that produce those figures are specific and documented. The 39-country travel ban, the visa freeze affecting nationals from 75 countries at its broadest, the formal travel advisory issued by a coalition of 120 civil society organizations warning international visitors of serious risks, the LGBTQ supporter organizations in England and Germany that announced they would not bring a visible presence, the former FIFA president posting publicly that fans should stay away, the Swiss legal expert who worked on FIFA's own governance reform telling supporters they'd see it better on television anyway. Each of those deterrents operated independently. Together, they produced a cumulative reduction in international attendance that the hotel data, the aviation booking figures, and the resale market have all confirmed. Here is the bigger issue, and it is worth stating with complete clarity because it is the conclusion that the full evidence demands. FIFA had time to respond to every one of the signals that preceded this tournament. The Club World Cup attendance figures were available in the summer of 2025. The travel ban concerns were formally raised in letters and reports through the autumn and winter. The water bottle policy could have been settled months ago in consultation with supporter groups who were already engaged on fan welfare. The seat map changes and dynamic pricing complaints were being made through official channels from the moment the ticket sales process opened. The Human Rights Action Plan failures, all but one host city committee falling short, were documented in a report published months before the opening match. The governing body responded to each of these with statements, with affirmations of commitment, with references to its statutes and its human rights framework, with the occasional reversal when the criticism became loud enough to be commercially damaging, as with the water bottle ban, and with a consistent underlying continuity of approach. The commercial model would be maintained, the revenue projections would be pursued, and the specific concerns of supporters and communities would be addressed at the level of language rather than at the level of operational change. That choice has consequences. They are visible in the hotel occupancy figures, in the resale market, in the 17,000 canceled tickets, in the stands of a pre-tournament match in Tampa with 50,000 empty seats, in the email a supporter received 5 days before the opening match telling them their water bottle was now banned, and in the email they received 3 days later telling them the ban had been reversed. What do you think? You've watched enough football to know the difference between an institution that makes mistakes and corrects them because it genuinely cares about the outcome, and one that makes corrections only when the criticism has become too loud to ignore. Does what FIFA has done in the lead up to this tournament feel like the former or the latter to you? And here is the question worth sitting with as the football finally begins. The moments are coming. The goals, the drama, the performances that only a World Cup produces, they are hours away now. The Azteca tomorrow night, Toronto the day after, Los Angeles the same evening. Whatever has surrounded this tournament, whatever has preceded it, whatever criticism has been leveled, and whatever reversals have been forced, when the football starts, it will be real and it will be extraordinary. But extraordinary football and a well-managed tournament are not the same thing. You can have one without the other. And the story of how the 2026 World Cup was built, the travel bans, the empty stands, the water bottle reversal, the walkout at the FIFA Council, the human rights reports, the 17,000 canceled tickets, that story will still be true on the 19th of July, whatever happens between now and then.